I signed up for so many classes, got so much info, was able to hone my skills, because just because this is what I do doesn't mean that I can't learn more. In fact, the moment you call yourself an expert, that means you've stopped learning because you think you know everything there is to learn about it. Other people may call you an expert.
Dr. Tosh, you gotta say that one more time. That was good.
Yeah, TikTok, I'm just rolling on the block. Recently heard that pocket show about to start. Heard that. You should know if entertainment is your goal. You talking sports or travel, yo. This the hottest pod show. Heard that. She got the juice, everything she says is truth. If you don't know, now you know. All you ever gotta say is heard that, heard that, heard that, heard that, heard that. Look, all you ever gotta say.
What's up, Heard That Nation, listening in the United States and around the world. You are listening now to Heard That with Marisa Tigney podcast. If you are watching right now on YouTube, hit that subscribe button for me. I'm following my words because I'm so excited. Hit that subscribe button for me so that you can be in the know of all the future episodes and future guests that we have coming up on this channel. When I tell you this amazing guest that I have on today is a force in the media world, those that are future journalists, those that want to go into filming or are currently in filming school, you need to pay attention, get a notepad out, get your phone out, jot down some notes, because she's definitely going to bring a lot of information to the table. Dr. Tashi, PhD, she's absolutely amazing. She is a media professor, filmmaker, media content producer, and a journalist who's on fire for all things media, tech, and pop culture. She is the host of Mediascope, Be More and I'm gonna have her explain what the ER on Be More is. It's absolutely phenomenal. You don't wanna miss that. And Media Meets Brunch live streams and the TV channeling and pop unfiltered podcast. Additionally, she is a video live streaming and social media consultant. Her philosophy when it comes to content creation, start where you are, then respect audience to get better. I like that. And I am beyond thrilled and beyond excited to welcome Dr. Tachi to the Heard That podcast. Welcome, ma'am.
Hello. Thank you. Wow. I guess the interview is over because you've said everything, basically.
Listen, I was talking to you before we jumped on here, and I was saying to you that I was talking to some media friends of mine that are in School of Journalism and Film and Arts, and a few of them have heard of your name and have seen what you have done in the media world. And I got to tell you, Dr. Tachi, you bring a wealth of knowledge when you go on your Mediascope IG Live, and then you go on your Facebook Live, and then the outlets that you have. But the common question that we were talking about, I was talking about with my group of friends and those in the film industry, is how did you get started and you knew that this media path that you're on was for you?
Okay, so that's interesting. It really did start when I was little. My mother's nickname for me and my sister was TV addicts, because the TV was always on. In fact, there was a picture. I was 4 and my sister was 2. Mm-hmm. And my mother was taking a picture of us. So we were looking off to the side. I was like, what are we looking at? And then I realized we were watching the TV. There was never a time that the TV wasn't on. So I've always had a fascination with television, with all things media, always loved it. But the interesting thing is, I actually wanted to be a fashion designer initially. That's what I thought my path was going to be. I used to design for myself, for all of my friends, and I thought that's what I was going to do. But African parents, that wasn't going to happen.
See, and here's the thing, and those that know Dr. Tachi and have seen her work, she has not only been so brilliant in the media, but if you're watching right now on YouTube, you can check out her amazing outfit that she has on, especially the earrings. You can tell that there is an intertwine not only of your media sense, but also your fashion savvy. And I know you just said, your parents, but what is it that they said, or could have been somebody that may have inspired you to lure you away from the fashion world? Not fully, because again, you have that amazing fashion sense and that fashion savvy that you have. and got you, full guns, full blazing towards the media world that you have, definitely created and been so great at.
So after I said, my father asked, this is like in 8th grade, what I was going to do when I got to college. 8th grade, my father, I said, I just made up law, because when you're a Nigerian child, there are really 4 things that are acceptable. So doctor, lawyer, engineer, disgrace to the family. So you are not being number 4.
That last option was not happening.
That was not happening. So I just threw in, I said, lawyer or fashion design. My father said, fashion. What kind of rubbish is that? No, that's not a good. So I said, okay, guess not fashion. And he actually was the one that knew that I loved television and said, why don't you consider mass communication? I'm like, I'm not quite sure what that is. So I did research and found out that it was mass media, anything that was radio, television, film, internet, all of that. So I said, oh, I really do like that. So, okay, that's what I'm going to do. And that's what I ended up majoring in college. All 3 of my degrees are mass media. So it was actually my father who pushed me, because I didn't even know that existed as a field until I got in there. Or until my father made the mention of it. And then I got in there and said, okay, these people that are on television, this is what they do. Or back in the day, that's really what they used to major in. So that's where it came from. And then, of course, you come up through the ages of seeing people like, of course, I was really little, but Oprah was on television. The Oprah Winfrey Show was on TV, and I used to watch grown folks television. You also had Donahue, who was on. So you had a lot of Sally Jesse Raphael, a lot of the old school talk show people were on the air, right? And then you had such wonderful children's programming. I'm also a huge PBS advocate. So just the fact of people putting together these skits that I took to, I'm like, oh, this is stuff that I could do. So that's where all of that kind of came from.
And that's exactly the path that I saw growing up. Oprah and Donahue and Sally Jesse Raphael, Ricky Lake. More of the women per se that was going into mainstream television, let alone having their own talk show. Because as I said in your platform when we talked a few months ago, to see a woman behind a microphone that's not singing, that's not acting, but actually holding her own in her own show was very, very rare. Going through the late 70s and 80s. And I had mentioned, Jane Kennedy Overton being my inspiration. Who was your inspiration in media? And then we'll go into talking about your incredible media scope that you had, developed, and that has become absolutely fantastic for those that are in media itself, and a tool and a guide. Who was your I like to call it your media guidance counselor, should I say, when you were going through all of this?
Yeah, like a media crush, right?
Yes.
Definitely Oprah. In high school, they used to call me Oprah. Who knew she was still going to be doing all this? Because, at the time, it's like you have, okay, people, they're on and then they're off the air. There was not that sense of longevity in media. Media was like a fleeting thing that, as you quote, aged out, that's not something that you did anymore. But what we're seeing now is that you don't age out. You just transition to different parts of it. So even if you start off in acting, you may still continue to act, but then you get into directing, you get into producing and all those different things. So definitely Oprah. But I was inspired to become a filmmaker because of Spike Lee. Well, a couple of people. Spike Lee was one of the people that really, really had an influence on me picking up a camera and wanting to document stories and to tell stories from a scripted point of view, as well as there's a filmmaker, her name is Julie Dash. She was the one who wrote and directed Daughters of the Dust. I absolutely love Daughters of the Dust because I'm also, a lot of my research has to do with culture. And I was really fascinated by the Gullah culture that was displayed there. Also, Haile Gerima, who directed Sankofa. or Sankofa, let me say it properly. And the ironic thing is I went to Howard University where Haile Garima is still a faculty member. And I belonged to a group that we needed some place to meet. And Haile Garima let us meet at his place, Sankofa Books, every week for free. And so just seeing that and seeing that the film world had given so much to him, so he was giving back to the group, that was absolutely amazing. So definitely Haile Garima is one of my favorites.
That's fantastic. And I like that you had said that you picked up a camera because you were inspired by Spike Lee. And I think that myself, on this journey of podcasting and filming, and you and I have talked extensively about documentaries and so forth, and how I have just recently became so fascinated with it because there's always a story of, a group of people or a person or a place, it doesn't matter, but just how the cinematography, the storyline can just capture one's person and the viewer, the audience of that. When you were going through, when you said, you picked up a camera and you got inspired to, tell stories and everything else, what was that beginning stages of that journey like for you? Because here's the thing that I want people to realize and to, squash the stipulation of is that they need to go, you went to Howard University and you got your degree, and you got people that are inspired to do so, but they're like, man, I'm not trying to go back in the classroom. I'm not trying to go, I got all these ideas. I want to, take my camera and I just want to shoot film and I want to edit and I just want to slice and dice and everything else. Take me back to the earlier stages when you did pick up that camera and you're just like, okay, this is what the path I want to do. I want to go, shoot documentaries and film and such. Let's close the door on that stipulation that people have to have the same path, such as yourself, they have to go to school and get this degree and everything else. If they have that passion and they have that fire to go and film, talk to the audience and just let them know, hey, go for it. Like, you can go and make it happen. What was the steps that you took to make it happen when it came to, you starting your filming process?
Okay, so obviously as you mentioned, there are different avenues to reach that same goal. I chose a quote traditional avenue in terms of actually, so I started off in communication, obviously communication theory, but then I added, because I knew I was interested in learning to craft film, I added the University of Buffalo, because undergrad, I was at the University of Buffalo, and that's where I got the majority of my training. So undergrad, I went and minored in media study, which was at University of Buffalo, is the independent film and video component.
Okay.
So they're teaching you to be a video and film artist as opposed to a Hollywood person. And I think this is why I have such vigor and I'm on fire for indie film and indie content creation, because that's where my roots are. That's where I came from. They weren't they were training you in terms of how to make film. And when I learned film, I learned on 8 and 16 millimeter film. So I learned on celluloid, where you had to go and get it developed. So we would take our trip up to Toronto, wait, hang around all day, and at the end of the day, pick it up to show in class the next day. So I learned very old school. And so I really got my sense of that from school, of learning and understanding from school, but you don't have to. There is a little place called YouTube University, which is fantastic. YouTube has so many great instructional, informational videos. And it's not only YouTube. There is videomaker.com has every Wednesday, they do these seminars on Zoom that you can join in and learn about different things like lenses, like camera, like lighting, that are absolutely phenomenal. And we're going to talk about it later. I even do my little Be More Earth segments, give you information on how to do things better in terms of the technical aspect of it. And we're going to get into things like storytelling, etc. So there are a multitude of places that you could do. And I will say this, those people who have gone to film schools, you have an advantage in terms of the fact, or gone through film programs. There's an advantage in terms of the fact that you have access to a network. And when you don't go through those programs, you have to work that much harder to access networks. It doesn't mean it can't be done, but there's a
Right.
network if you went to AFI, if you went to NYU, if you went to UT Austin, if you went to USC, if you went to those top film programs, you definitely have a network, not only of professors that will probably keep in touch with you, but classmates that you can collaborate on things, because you probably collaborated during class anyway. So that's something that you don't get when you don't go the traditional school route. But that doesn't mean that you can't find film groups in the city that you live in, online, collaborate. Look, the metaverse is opening up so much in terms of being able to produce content on the blockchain and using NFTs to access funding for this. There's no way that you can say, I can't do this.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be through school. The only thing, the difference is school gives you access to some networks that you have to work harder to get once, if you did not go through a film program. But that to me is the only difference.
Right. And so it's very interesting now, because you had mentioned it with, Instagram and Facebook, now TikTok, where people, have their phone, their iPhone, their Android, whatever, their camera, and they're shooting like little mini clips now, because those platforms are now broadening their channels, if you will, of people utilizing the intertwinings of utilizing their media. They're utilizing you can record your little mini film here, or your snapshot of this, like upload your 2-3 minute video or whatever the case is, to get more viewership, to get people that potential sponsorship and all of that. And so I'm noticing that with more of those platforms, that people are taking advantage of those. And it's just anybody. It's not just, young people that, are into, these dances that they do, or film that they do, or, the latest and greatest trends that's going on. It's anybody. I mean, we got 100-year-old Iris Apfel that is just a trendsetter. And now she has her own line that's sold out at H&M. So anybody can, shoot little mini clips and get an audience attention through all of that, which is so amazing. So you doing this filming and you doing documentaries or anything, who is the most interesting people that you have met throughout, that you were able to connect with, that you were able to talk to, famous folk, infamous folk, that you have connected with and possibly still have connected with?
So this is interesting. A good friend of mine who is also a filmmaker and content producer, Joe Wilson, I met him through the live streaming world. So there are a bunch of us that know each other from live streaming since 2015, and he's one of those individuals. He wrote a graphic novel called Vampire Mob, and one of the characters in Vampire Mob says this line: "We are all famous to a few people." So everybody has this bit of notoriety or this bit of fame, depending on who your circles are, depending on who it is. So to me, anybody that I have the opportunity to speak with in a way and allows me to document their story, to me, you're a superstar. To me, you're famous. So that said, I am so in love with all of the people, because I'm very particular about who I select to be on any of my programs, about who I select to interview if I'm doing a documentary or whatever. Very selective. And I have never been let down, because I think I have a keen eye for personalities. And so I've loved every single minute of everybody. Just a few people, met some really interesting people when a friend and I were doing a documentary. We never finished it, but we started doing a documentary on food deserts in the inner city. And it was focused here in South Florida. So we got to talk to a lot of people about the lack of healthy food in certain areas in South Florida, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, etc. So there were a lot of people there that we got to speak with. We did a documentary called Sunshine Chic, where we looked at 4 fashionable individuals in South Florida and what their approach to fashion was. When I say bomb, there was this designer from Colombia that I happened to be covering Miami Fashion Week. And so Miami Beach Fashion Week, I happened to go down there. There was this guy in a sailor hat with his shirt open, and it was this I said, oh my gosh, I have to have him for that. And he was so amazing. Went and shot him. There's an Iris Apfel lookalike that lives here. And I happened to see her driving one day. And I was like, where is she going? I need her for the documentary. I ended up following her to Parker Playhouse because there was a play going on. And I said, okay, what time is this over? I'm going to come back. Managed to get her and asked if she would, and she said, I would love to. And so she's got the same big glasses. All of her clothing is one style, but different fabrics. She is absolutely amazing. So just people like that, what people will call everyday people, but to me are superstars because they have a unique approach to whatever it is they do.
I love that. I love that you had said that, that people, just have a story, have that niche, something that, and I think that's key of what you said. You cannot just invite everybody on your show. Like okay, I want to, have a show, or I want to have a podcast, I want to have all this. And then, you tell your friends, and your friends like, oh, I want to get on there and say something. You can't invite everybody because some people don't flow or jive with what, your niche is going to be. That is so important. I've had people that, started a podcast and it quickly faded just like that because they let anybody and everybody come on their platform and talk about just utter nonsense, and it turned the viewer off. It turned the person listening off.
Yes.
And
can I add to that?
Please do. Yes, please do.
So, in terms of that, and I'm sure you've already experienced this, you're going to get a lot of pitches. Once you put yourself out there and you think, well, my show's not that big, you'll be surprised the amount of people I get pitching me to be on Mediascope or what. I mean, people actually pitch me. And, sometimes I'm like, you don't know you're coming on Mediascope, right? Not that it's not the bomb, but they're pitching me like they're trying to go on, on national television.
Right.
And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, well, the thing is, I am very specifically media, tech, pop culture, and those are the people I interview. However, I do know some other people that you may be a better fit for, and I direct them. So I don't just say no. I'm like, if they are a fit for what somebody else I know is doing, I'm like, well, maybe you're a fit for that. So simply because you wrote a book is media, but that doesn't mean you're a candidate to come on the show. But because you wrote a book about self-help, you may be better for my friend XYZ. And so I'll put them in that direction.
Yeah, I'll get that too. I think I've gotten 2 inquiries about, hypnotherapy. I've gotten 47 inquiries about people being a self-help guru, self-help coach, a life coach. I mean, I'm just like, they realize what my story, my show is all about. But, I think that's such a good idea that if somebody that in your media world can, that person can possibly be a guest on there, that's great and everything else. And I think that's so important that people need to realize you just can't go and, pitch to whoever, whatever. I mean, it could be about where somebody's talking about dog food plants, and here you go talking about, well, I am a life coach.
Right?
That's not going to work out for you. So
no.
Mediascope, your baby.
Yes.
That you have came. This is so amazing of what it is and what it's all about. Talk to us about how Mediascope happened and how Be More in Media meets Brunch, which I think is absolutely fantastic what you do with that one. How that has come full circle for you, and I see it continually evolving and growing. So talk about Mediascope.
So I always knew that, my whole thing is, for a long time, I was always doing other things. I was always making films. All of the films that I did while I was a full-time faculty member at a large university. But I knew that I was not destined to be a full-time faculty member retiring at the university forever, because I'm also trying to be a millionaire, and that lifestyle does not do that.
Cheers.
So that's when I knew That's when I knew it was time
Indeed.
for me to make another plan, right?
Mhm.
Because you know, the academy, sorry to say, teaches a poverty mentality where it's all about service, service, service to everybody else, but then you don't serve yourself. And it almost feels like there is a semi-punishment for achieving to be wealthy, right?
Yeah.
How many wealthy professors do you know? Not a lot, because the whole thing is about service. And I do believe in service, loves my students dearly, but I'm also not going to continue to sacrifice myself for other people.
Right.
And so I knew when I got to my university, I made a list of the things I wanted to accomplish, a long list of what I wanted to do there. So I started a film festival at that university, and it's still running to this day.
Mhm.
And then once I got to the last thing on my list, I said, you know what, it's time for me to move on. So in 2015, I actually let them know, yeah, next year I'm not going to come back. And they were shocked, because at this point, this was my 10th year.
Mhm.
And they were shocked. And they were like, I was going to turn it in, and I didn't turn it in like till the next week. And the dean said, do you think she changed her mind? Because they were wanting me not to leave, but I knew it was time for me to move on. And
Mhm.
so when I ended in June of 2015, I was like, all right, what is the next step? Now I was still teaching, right? Part-time at another university. So I still had that, but I'm like, all right, what is my next step? I stopped this because I wanted to do more in terms of film, more in terms of content. And this is when live streaming became a mass thing. Live streaming had been there since like the early 2000s,
Right.
but in terms of an app that we all could use, it was when at South by Southwest, when Meerkat debuted, and then a month later, Periscope debuted. So I
Mhm.
said, okay, I'm going to do something with this. What was I going to do? I didn't know. So I sat and I watched people, saw what people were doing in the space. And then I said, you know what? I know what I'm going to do. I teach media tech and pop culture. That's what the hell I'm going to talk about.
Right.
And so on July 29th, 2015, I went live, and that's when Mediascope started. So I called it Mediascope. I had always gone live to 2 platforms at once, Meerkat and Periscope. And we started doing that, and the audience started to grow. Because the thing is, when you are consistent,
Right.
people will gravitate toward that consistency.
Correct.
So
I think that is
yeah.
so key what you just said, especially about the consistency piece. Because once you grow that audience, they're gonna be that you already captured their attention. And I think, you know, though, and I was gonna compliment you, your voice alone captures an audience to me, because when you start off with something you're going to say, whether you talk about a movie review or you talk about the latest is happening in media, or something that has shifted in, you know, filming, or, you know, technology and how to make filming better, editing better, everything, your voice automatically has captured an audience. I mean, I can speak for myself, but also like when you go and you're on your IG and you talk to everybody before you go live on your Mediascope, it's in the comments. And I just wanted to give you flowers for that, for what you teach, for what you say. It's a learning point. And for me, my takeaway from the last time, it was a couple of weeks ago on your IG, where you had talked about, I had a question about editing, because that right there is a whole element of editing. I mean, I'm like, I can film all day. I can, like, you know, shoot in different locations and, you know, talk to people and everything else. And when I talk to some of my friends that are in filming and journalism, and those that, you know, like myself, that just love doing podcasting and doing, you know, capturing film and doing like mini films and everything else with our phones and having these ideas, it's like, okay, I got all this content. I gotta edit it. Like, you were like, yeah, go for it, edit it, use this suggestion or this. And I'm like,
Yeah.
Dr. Tachi, I want that easy button like you see on the Staples commercial. It's easy.
Well, you know, and that's the thing about it. There are so many ways that content is different now.
Mhm.
And I think we just have to come to the realization that not everyone is going to go and use an Adobe Premiere to finally cut and edit things. And guess what? When you see some of these people on YouTube that have like 50,000 followers, their audience doesn't give a damn. And sometimes I'm like, You couldn't have done something with the sound, but clearly it didn't matter. So we have to come to the realization that it's about the content of your content, right? It's about what you're talking about. And so people gravitate towards the content and towards you as a personality. So if you are terrible as a personality, your content is mediocre, and you have bad production, okay, you can't have all three now. So, I think we need to come to the thing that acceptable content or acceptable level of production is great, depending on who your audience is.
Right.
But I'm always an advocate for doing it right, because if you want to repurpose it, then you're going to have to go and reshoot it if it's not done well, or if the sound is crappy. If somebody, Netflix comes to you now and says, we want to pick this up, but we need you to reshoot all of this. If you had done it right in the first place, that wouldn't have been a problem.
Right.
So,
especially when you have a heavy hitter as Netflix or Hulu or anybody or any company that's out there, that is so important. Like you said, the content, to capture the audience, to get their attention, to have them subscribe, and to be a fan of your work. I'm a fan of what you do, especially Be More and Media Meets Brunch. Talk about those two concepts, especially Be More, the part at the end of that, and why and how you came up with that and what it means, because that was an aha for me, how you translated the part. And I've never looked at it the same ever after you explained what it meant.
Well, good. That's exactly what the point was, to cause people to think. So Be More is actually a video series that I do. Of course, I am a live girl. I love stuff live. Of course, I record video, but live, you don't have to worry about going back and editing, because I've done this now for 7 years consistently. Rarely do I have mistakes that I can't get over. So the fact of that I have to go and now edit something that's pre-recorded, I didn't feel like doing that. But I saw people making so many mistakes during the pandemic when it came to this is when we all had to use video. And I was like, this is bloody awful. This is terrible. I mean, I really saw some terrible content and terrible video. There was great stuff, but then people just doing stupid things like your head is at the bottom of the screen on Zoom. Why? Right. Put your camera down. So I'm like, you know what? If I'm going to talk about people, because I did talk about people, then I really need to provide an avenue for them to learn how to do it properly. So I came up with the concept of Be More, and that actually came out of a show on Mediascope. And I said this to people. I was like, after all this is over, meaning the pandemic, you better come out. There's no reason for you to come out of this a worse person than when you went in. You better be smarter, wiser, wealthy. Damn it, just be more. And that's where that came from. So it's that concept of leveling up and always aiming to be the best in whatever, more than right? To be better is not, it's better than being just good, right? You want to be better. You want to be smarter with your video and live stream. So I took that concept and applied it to video and live streaming, and that's where that came from. And then with Media Meets Brunch, I saw it's usually a post or somebody, one of our CQ sisters, Tasha, had a post up about the ending of Insecure. And I noticed how many people were really, as folks say, in their feelings because Insecure was ending. And it was the end of an era. It was the end of having Black millennials documented in such a way, in stories that were so real. And it didn't just, touch millennials. It's like so many generations had that same story, the group of 4 friends. And so when I saw that, I was like, let me reach out to her and see if she'd be interested in doing a discussion on this. So the first topic came from there, but I knew that I love brunch. That is one of my favorite meals. So I knew that I wanted to do something that was media related and with brunch, and I was coming up with a name. I was like, oh, Media Meets Brunch. And so the initial thing was I was going to do it in my kitchen. and it was going to be centered around, I'm not a chef, but I'm a damn good cook. So centered around what I was doing for brunch, and we were just going to chat about a media topic. And initially it was just going to be me. But when I saw that, I'm like, you know what? I can invite people on and we could talk media and have brunch. So people come on and we talk about a media topic that they have some knowledge of, and we all share what we are brunching on. It is so much fun.
Oh, I love it. And I'm like looking at some of the food, like the last one that you had when you all were talking about Insecure. And to me, I was like, how am I late to the party about Insecure? I have not watched one episode. So that alone got me watching the show, because you all had talked about certain things. And I'm like, okay, I know there's going to be a bunch of spoilers in here, but how you all sold me on that, I'm like, how in the world? And I love me some Issa Rae. So how in the world have I not watched this show? And I was like, okay, I get it. I get why they were upset about, because I'm on season 3. So I'm like, I get why they were upset about it and everything else. But doggone it, you all had some delicious food, talking about it as well. I'm going, this is so fantastic how they like talking about a show and media and what it meant to them and munching on brunch and, everybody's viewpoint of that. And that is what media to me is partly about. Is you're capturing the essence of a movie or a show or an event or a concert. It doesn't matter, but it's bringing everybody together. And I think more so than ever since the pandemic, where we were all pretty much grounded and we were in, in our home and staying away from everything. And that's how this platform got started. When you were, you're doing all your stuff and you were teaching and you shifted into, like you said, doing Mediascope in 2015, we got into that pandemic of 2020.
Yeah.
What was your whole mental like? Because, you were used to, I'm sure, going out there and you doing your filming and doing, you're traveling and, taking your talents of Mediascope and, evolving it and everything else. And then the pandemic happened. So from there, as you said, be more better, be wiser, be smarter. God, that is just so good how you put that. What has that gotten for you from 2020? We're now almost halfway through 2022. How have you gotten more better, more wiser, more smarter, be more what is that meant to, for you?
That is excellent. The pandemic was, and let's be clear, we're still in a pandemic, in a global pandemic. It has been cause for me to really take stock of what's happening, what I need to do. It gave me such a chance to, was I able to level up in terms of courses and classes, because at this point, I remember like at the beginning of the pandemic, there was, Stack Skills or one of these places, HubSpot had like a whole bunch of training courses. It was like 8 that you could get for $29. And it was all about like deepening your skills in After Effects. And so I was like, what? So I signed up for so many classes, got so much info, was able to hone my skills, because just because this is what I do doesn't mean that I can't learn more. In fact, the moment you call yourself an expert, that means you've stopped learning because you think you know everything there is to learn about it. Other people may call you an expert.
Dr. Tosh, you gotta say that one more time. That was good. That's
absolutely.
Good.
So I was like, the moment you call yourself an expert, for so many classes, that means you got so much info at all. Was able to hone my skills, because just because this is what I do doesn't mean that I can't learn more. In fact, the moment you call yourself an expert, that means you've stopped learning because you think you know everything there is to learn about it. Other people may call you an expert.
Dr. Tosh, you gotta say that one more time. That was good. That's
absolutely
good.
The moment you call yourself an expert, that means you've stopped learning at all. Because you think you've learned everything or know everything there is to know about a particular area, field, subject. You should always be striving to be better, always learning. So other people can call me an expert. I don't say that about myself because I'm still learning when it comes to things. there's always going to be somebody who has more knowledge about something than you. So you can't possibly be a media, call yourself a media expert, because you should realize that there's still more to come, that you have miles to go, right, before you get to that point, if you even reach that point. And guess what? I don't want to reach that point, because I want to keep on learning. Am I proficient? Hell yeah. I know I'm proficient in what I do, but I fall short of calling myself an expert because I still have so much more to learn. And I think that's with anybody, but other people can call me that. I won't call myself that, though.
Right. Because we're students. We're all students, especially when it comes to honing in our craft and our passions of what we want to do. You always, we wake up and we go through our daily rituals, prayer or meditation, or you're walking outside or whatever we do, exercise and all that. And then throughout the day, or, beginning of the day, everybody hopefully should start and just sit in the stillness and think about, okay, what is my intention for the day? What do I want to accomplish for this day? What is it that I want to do and be better than I was yesterday, better than my previous best. And then at the end of the day, just wanting to, it's like, okay, what did I learn? What did I take away? What was my takeaway? Because there's always lessons to take away from the day that you had. And I think that's so well that you said what you said, and that all of us on this earth through our journey, that we are students, we are evolving, we are learning so much. I had asked you who your ultimate person would be to have on your show and your program. And I love your answer. And I got to know why Byron Allen would be your, and I believe wholeheartedly you will have him on your show, because I'm rooting for you to have him on your show. But why him to be a guest on Mediascope? Why him?
Just because of not just because, but because of the inroads that he has made in the world of media. I remember watching him when I was really little. He was on a show as a comedian called Real People. I don't know if you remember that show.
I remember that show. Yes.
So a lot of people don't, but I remember watching him, and he was a comedian. So to look at the metamorphosis from him as a comedian on Real People and other, stand up and whatever else he did, to being a media mogul at this point, owning several stations, networks, several, to have he basically is like a multimedia conglomerate. If you think about that, that is something to be looked up to. Not everybody wants to do that. That's okay. Some people are good where they are. They're good with whatever role they have, and that's fine. I want that.
Yeah.
So,
and it's just the thing that just is so interesting about Byron Allen is that you're like, okay, this man is a comedian. I don't want to say was, because he's still doggone funny to me. But then you look at the evolvement from the many years of and you're like, this man owns stations, and he wants to own. And I think he had his name in the ring for a sporting team and all that.
Yeah, for was it the Denver Broncos?
I want to say that. I want to say so. That was one of the sporting teams, because again, as me being, into sports and everything else, I'm like, okay, when is it going to be where a Black family, a Black person, Black woman, whoever of color is going to represent as an owner of a team? Not a minority stake, which is fine, because many, well-known celebrities have a minority stake in soccer teams and basketball and such, but outright ownership. And I was rooting for him. I really was, because it's just like, okay, he's going to kick down the door of someone of color owning a whole entire team. And it just blows my mind how much he has evolved from stand-up comedy to now what he is doing. And I agree with you. He is a force.
He's definitely a powerhouse. And the thing is, he also represents this concept of generational wealth in our community. Being able to, it's not just about the fact that he's a media mogul. It's about the fact that being a media mogul now affords him opportunities and seats at tables that we don't often have access to. And so it breaks down doors for us when things like that happen. The
Right.
fact that you only were able to even make a bid for a sports team, a major sports team, because you have the revenue to be able to do that.
Right.
And media affords you the opportunity to do that. So I just think that media does so much in terms of opportunities. It opens up a lot of different opportunities, particularly now with the different types of distribution. Yeah, social media is distribution. So the different types of distribution channels that we have, it opens up so much. So I applaud what he's been able to do and what he continues to do. In fact, I didn't have a time to do it, but he just had upfronts. Byron Allen Entertainment just had upfronts. And for people who don't know, the upfronts are when advertisers decide where and when they're going to put their advertising. So that's why all the networks are there, and they're saying, "Oh, these are the shows we have coming up in the fall, right?" And new fronts are for digital, and upfronts are for like traditional linear TV.
Okay.
And so he had his own upfronts, his own. Okay.
People better catch that. He had his own. That's huge.
So it's huge. It's huge. So, and it was open to people to register and see what was happening. Unfortunately, I couldn't, but I think it's amazing. So I would love to be able to offer opportunities like that to people, because we need to tell more of our own stories. As many people as we see now in media that look like us, there are still hundreds of thousands that need to be there that are not. And it's the same few that we see all the time. And this is no disrespect to them, but Hollywood works with who Hollywood wants to work with. And so that just means that you can't always be dependent on the Hollywood system for that. You have to make your own way. And that's what Byron Allen has done.
And that's massive. And I believe there's more of that, because he is setting the standard. And, you got Oprah, a media mogul herself, that's also setting the standard and continually allowing those like you and I and those that are in the media field and journalism and so forth to have that opportunity to continue to evolve and to grow. Before I let you go, two-part question.
Okay.
Don't be nervous. The best advice that you can give somebody that is into media and filming and wanting to pursue that or currently in it. And the other half of that is, what's the best advice that you have gotten from somebody who has been, that is in media and filming and journalism?
So best advice I can give is start where you are. Give yourself grace. If you only have an iPhone to start with, don't say, well, when I get some more money, I'm going to save up so I can get this Alexa Ari Alexa camera. And no, because that could be the next 10 years before you even see that dream realized. Start where you are with what you have, and then respect your audience enough to get better and add more, equipment. Because again, like I said, it's about the look and the production value, but it's also about the content. If you start with good content and then draw your audience in, trust me, you're going to be able to level up in terms of equipment. So I would say start where you are. Don't worry about having the best of everything initially. Just start. That's my advice. And in terms of the best advice that's been given to me, and this person is a media person, Shawana Kennedy, a friend of mine, but her primary thing is like motivation. So she has this movement called Self First. That's all I have to say. Self first. We spend, especially women, especially Black women, spend an inordinate amount of time serving other people to our own detriment. And I was, always, and I love service. I'm in several service organizations. So absolutely, that's something that I pride myself on, serving the community. But what good are you to the community or others if you yourself are a mess? Because you've spent all your time, you're clothing other people, but your clothes are in tatters and rags. And then you get talked about because you have raggedy clothes, but you gave it to somebody else. It's the whole thing. And we've heard this cliche over and over. When you have a child on a plane, they tell you, put your own mask on first and then help the child, because you can't help anybody if you pass out.
Right.
So self first, because once you're taken care of, you can then adequately serve and help others.
Oh, that was perfect. That is so good. Please share with everybody how in the world they can continue to stay connected to you and follow you on all your platforms.
Absolutely. So one of the best ways to get at me is on my Instagram. For some reason, I'm always using it. So that is at DR_TACHI. So at Dr. Tachi, you can definitely reach me there. Mediascope is every Wednesday, 5 p.m. Eastern time on my Instagram is the pre-show. Then at 6, we hop on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter, and we're also heard on Gospel 107.1 FM in Nassau, Bahamas. So
The
we
Bahamas,
are
y'all.
Yes, and the rest of the Caribbean. So it's the Bahamas and the Caribbean. So you can hear us down there on as a replay on Thursdays at 8 p.m. And just watch my social media because I always put up when the next Be More is, the little video series. You can always catch it there and on my YouTube channel. Dr. Tachi is my YouTube channel. And yeah, so those are how you can reach me. Watch socials because I put everything there.
Man, so good, so good. And I hope that everybody that was watching and listening has taken a lot of gems, a lot of nuggets away from this conversation. Dr. Tachi, you have and you continue to be a force in the media world. And I'm so honored to call you friend and sister, my CQ sister. Those that don't know what CQ is, it's Club Quarantine. Get on IG, get on Instagram, and follow Club Quarantine. DJ D Nice is the one that has founded that. There's so many of us that has connected through Club Quarantine, and I have connected with this amazing, amazing soul right here, Dr. Tachi. Thank you so much for coming on the Heard That podcast.
Thank you.
I appreciate you. And those that have been watching and listening, thank you so much. And as I always end the show, take care, stay safe, be good to one another. We're out of here.